All right, so here I have a backpack that I've loaded up with equipment that might be useful during a mostly peaceful protest, which is something that some of you may encounter here in the near future. Which is why I'm making this video, to give you some ideas about gear and equipment that might help you if you find yourself caught up in the middle of unrest. Not everybody who is in the crossfire wants to be there. And you might be in a metropolitan area where you're just trying to get home and suddenly it spawns right around you and you have to deal with it, right? And the whole purpose of this backpack and everything within it is to get you to safety. There isn't necessarily any heavy emphasis on self-defense or personal defense, although there is some personal protection equipment in this backpack. The idea, though, is that you're going to use it to get away, right? So, especially because a lot of these metropolitan areas don't necessarily allow people to have access to personal defense equipment, I wanted to make sure to gear this towards the general population for people who are suddenly dealing with this current risk right now. Now, some of you also say, well, Magic Prepper, if you're telling us all of this stuff, you might be helping the people who are part of the unrest just as well. And to that I say, you are correct. But regardless, this could help some Americans out there who have no choice or just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And my goal is to give them options so that way they can be better prepared. So let's get into the bag. Now, this backpack is a Maxpedition Prepared Citizen, and it looks like your standard backpack. Now, it is pretty full right now because I put some things in here that I didn't actually expect to fit, and yet here we are. So I'm pretty impressed. But this backpack has a relatively bland look, and I think that's fine for what we're trying to do. I'd prefer to avoid something that's a little bit too tactical in the sense of Molly or anything else that screams you might be better prepared than the average person. But at the same time, this backpack's made very strong out of very good materials as in comparison to other school bag type backpacks. So that's why I like the Maxpedition Prepared Citizen quite a bit. Now here's the thing. What we're seeing right now at this current unrest, especially with the riots occurring in Los Angeles, is that people are wearing all types of personal protective equipment, including body armor. They're wearing ballistic shielded masks. They're also wearing all types of things to conceal their identity. So some of this stuff might not stick out as bad as you would assume. However, I do want you to do some research because depending on where you are, some of this stuff could be illegal to have at a protest. Now, that's not nationwide, but certain states and certain jurisdictions say, hey, you can't wear a mask and conceal your identity at a protest, even if it's for your protection and you're just an innocent bystander. So you do need to understand the local laws of your area in order to decide whether or not any of this would be valuable for you. So let's get into the bag, and don't immediately panic when I start pulling things out because it might seem excessive, but I'm going to explain everything. And there's a lot of stuff in this bag that I've had over the years that I've worked with companies on regarding other projects, and there will be links down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment if you're interested in some of this equipment because it will help support the channel, and there may be some discount codes available as well. So let's go ahead and start opening this up. Now, the big compartment right here is where you're going to freak out a little bit because it might seem excessive, but we're going to talk about it, I promise. First thing that's coming out of here right now is going to be a gas mask. Now, like I said, in certain areas, masks might be prohibited, so you need to be aware of whether or not you're in one of those areas and decide whether or not the risk is high enough to risk that possible consequence in order to avoid exposing yourself to dangerous chemicals. Now, this particular mask is a Mirror Safety C21. It's one of their newer masks, and I like it quite a bit because it's very comfortable, it's very versatile, and it has a lot of different visors that you can actually insert here right on the front. Now, these are ballistic shielded, so that way if something was to explode and there's shrapnel or people are throwing rocks or anything else that becomes a projectile heads your way, this will help protect your eyes. Now, what else is interesting about this particular mask is that Mirror Safety offers a bunch of visors that allow you to choose the level of protection you want. So for example, this one is a sunshade, but they have other ones that do things like block out lasers, right? And we know during these protests, you often see lasers or very bright lights or all types of things occurring. And that might be a good option if you're wanting to protect your eyes, especially when people are using those things as ways to disrupt a crowd, right? So that's something that I like about this mask. And of course, you're also going to need a filter. Now, this is the NBC. Oh, let's go ahead and grab that back. And look, I'm not even worried about it because it's going to be fine. Now, this is Mirror Safety's MBC 77SOF. Now, what's nice about these is they have a very long shelf life, and they're good for most of your CBRN threats. So this is going to take care of your tear gas, your pepper spray, and all that stuff, but also take care of things like radioactive iodine. So these are very good. But here's the thing, okay? First off, 40 millimeter NATO threads, which is the standard with gas masks like this. And of course, this one has a drinking tube and everything else built in. So there's some really good features for this particular mask for why I like it. But the filter is what really protects you. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. One, this mask is expensive. If the additional visors, the comfort, and the ease of use isn't as important to you as your budget, they do have the CM6M, which is still a very good mask. It has a very big panoramic view, and that would be very good as well. So make sure you check that out in case this one's too expensive. But the filter is still going to be the one I would recommend because it does everything and it lasts a long time if you never use it. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you're going to stage your mask, which this one's just trying to roll right off the table constantly apparently, if you're going to stage your mask, you have a couple options. One, you keep your filter sealed. The reason they're sealed is because you don't want moisture and all kinds of stuff just to be leaking into the filter over time, because that will hurt its shelf life and may diminish its capability over time depending on when you actually go to use it. But the other thing is that in this configuration, you can't use it very quickly now, can you? So if I was going to do this, I would probably take it out of this plastic wrap vacuum seal, but then I would leave these little caps you see here on the front and back of the filter on, which you see this one currently doesn't have. And then if I knew I was going to have to deploy the mask, I would rip those off really quickly and then install it on the mask. And if I thought I was going to walk through an area that was going to be dangerous, I would probably have the gas mask staged with the filter in it. So that way, if I have to put it on quickly, it's going to work without as much interruption. So that's the thing you have to consider. You really have to kind of plan around that in order to maximize the efficiency of these filters while also having access to the protection quickly. So that's the first thing that's going to be coming out of the bag. I'm not saying this is coming out in the order of priority. It's coming out in the way I was able to make it all fit in this backpack because it was a lot of stuff and I'm actually still pretty impressed by it. Now, we'll move on from there and we will go, well, here's the other big thing that might make you panic a little bit or freak out, but there is some reasonable reasons behind it. Let's see if I can just pull it out of here. Okay, so here we have ballistic helmet. Now, do you need a ballistic helmet? Not necessarily. Do you need a helmet of some kind? I think it would be a good idea. We've seen rocks fly, we've seen bottles fly, we've seen all types of projectiles, rubber bullets, 40 millimeter grenades that are for smoke or tear gas, and these things can hurt you if they hit you in the head. So having a helmet's a good idea. Now, having one like this might be a little excessive because it does breach that realm of tactical. But the other thing to keep in mind is that this helmet, because of its style, this is a high-cut helmet, right? Like a fast style. It will actually integrate with a gas mask so you can wear them both in tandem. And that could be beneficial depending on the situation if you need both types of protection. Now, if you wanted to be a little more discreet, you could use something like a skateboard helmet or a bike helmet. That would at least give your head some level of protection while looking a little less tactical or a little less aggressive in the process. So the reason I use this helmet, though, is because it's a ballistic helmet. This is a Premier Body Armor Fortis helmet. It's a level 3A protection, so it would stop something like a 9mm projectile, supposedly all the way up to a 44 Magnum, right? But the reality is that you just want to protect your head, and there are things flying through the air in these unrest situations that could definitely hurt you, and this definitely protects you more than something like a bicycle helmet will. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that you do have this high cut, and what this can do for you as well, and this is something that I would suggest, but I don't have in the bag right now because I just didn't have the add-on for the hearing protection, but hearing protection would be a good idea as well because there's all types of explosions going on, whether or not it's fireworks, whether or not it's something from the police, whether or not it's a flashbang or who knows what else. And so you can integrate hearing protection into a helmet like this, so you can wear that with the gas mask and have your hearing protected while still being able to hear because you're going to use most likely an electronic form of hearing protection. And then you're going to have your respiration protected because you're using the mask, as well as your eyes protected because you have a ballistic visor, and you have your head protected from anything that's coming down from above. So there's a lot of reasons why this is sensible, but it is very situation dependent because in a scenario where you look like the aggressor or you look like somebody who's causing problems and nobody else is wearing gas masks or helmets or anything else that would make that blend in a little more, then it could be problematic, which is why it's very important for you to decide, hey, is this the right choice to make at this point in time, right? So just wanted to go ahead and mention that. And yes, you should have some level of hearing protection. So if you're not going to have over-the-ear hearing protection like you've seen in some of the B-roll right now, then I would at least suggest having some foam earplugs just to have something in case things get too loud or rowdy, or in case flashbangs or something along those lines start to be used. Fireworks, of course, and that way you don't lose your hearing or get rocked because of something going off that's very loud. Now, we also know that often law enforcement will use, like loud sirens or loudspeakers and stuff like that to try to quell any unrest as well, and that could help protect you from that. Moving on. Okay. Hopefully this is all making sense. What else do I have in the bag? First aid. So you're going to need first aid. Obviously, I'm not going to go through an entire first aid kit because I think we know what we're using at this point in time, but anything could happen. Something traumatic could occur. Somebody could go excessive when it comes to use of force from either side, right? So things can get really bad really quick, and you want the ability to treat a catastrophic injury. Now, this first aid kit is from Refuge Medical. It does all those things. This is one of those kits that I just carry with me all the time. But one thing in particular that I want to share with you that I have in this kit right now that I think is very important to consider, at least adding to your kit or bringing with you as an option, would be this right here, which is Burn Tech. So this is a burn dressing, and we know that burns are very likely in these situations, right? We know that we've seen people recently throw in things like Molotov cocktails. We know people are lighting cars on fire. We know that fireworks are being shot into crowds. So there's a good chance of getting burned to some degree. So having Burn Tech is good. This is a hydrogel dressing, and you just basically apply it to a burn area in order to, well, treat the burn. So I think this would be a good addition in case your first aid kit doesn't already have it. And of course, if it does, then you're already in a good spot. And then you want all your usual first aid options as well, just in case things get a little bit dicey. So first aid's always important. You should have first aid on you no matter what the situation, no matter if it's calm, no matter if you're just driving to work or whatever it is. First aid is something that you're more likely to use than just about anything else we talk about regarding gear and equipment and stuff of that nature. So moving on from there, we have, okay, I'm going to take these out for now. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Yes, having water is always a good idea. You should stay hydrated. Try to drink more. But there's a little bit more to this than just water, which we'll discuss here in a second. But I have some other things I want to pull out of here first. And of course, if this is beneficial for you or you're finding any of this information useful, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below because it will help the channel grow. And this is the type of information I like to put out. And at the same time, if you want to share the video to give people ideas about what they can do to protect themselves in these situations, I would appreciate that as well. Now, in here, I've got some interesting options for personal protection as well. Now, this is a Premier Body Armor Everyday t-shirt, okay? Now, what's nice about the Everyday Armored t-shirt is that you have panels, both in the front and the back, that allow you to insert ballistic protection. Now, these panels are level 3A protected. So this would stop 9mm, 44 Magnum, 45 ACP. It would stop all those rounds. And of course, it's going to hurt, but at least it's not going to go inside your body and destroy all your organs. Now, the other thing that's great about these particular panels is they're very lightweight. Each one of these weighs less than a pound. So you can wear the Everyday Armor t-shirt with these two panels. Your back and your front is protected when it comes to your vital organs from shrapnel, from anything that's flying through the air that might not supposed to be, from bullets, right? At least from, handguns and from certain calibers and down, of course. And then at the same time, these are also slash and stab resistant. So if things get a little crazy or there's a scuffle or who knows what else is happening, that gives you that additional protection as well. And what's nice about this particular setup is that it's very discreet. You can wear it under an overshirt, wear it under a hoodie or a jacket, and no one needs to know you're wearing armor, so you don't have to have that additional aggressive look. Even if you're wearing the helmet and the gas mask and all that stuff, if you're wearing a helmet and a gas mask, but then you just have like a flannel on, it definitely helps keep you still in the realm of reasonability of looking possibly like someone who might just be blending in with the crowd or something like that, and not necessarily being overtly tactical to the point of being possibly an issue, right? So I think this is a good idea because it gives you that level of protection. Now, something else you can do in case you don't want to wear any additional armor, in case you just want to have something with you to protect yourself, and something that could be reasonable for an everyday scenario, not even just unrest and whatnot, is the Premier Body Armor. Yes, I work with them. This is why I have all this stuff, but I also think it's very relevant at this point in time. This is their laptop case, and this is a bulletproof laptop case. And so what's nice about this is that, first off, you can carry a laptop, not a very big one. So if you have one of those big gaming laptops, it definitely won't fit in here. I think this is meant for a MacBook Pro, but it will fit most standard size, just like work-related laptops. And what's nice about this is that it is bulletproof. So it will stop the same bullets that these panels will or that this helmet will. So level 3A, so you can stop up to 44 Magnum. And this is just in the back of my backpack in the laptop sleeve that I have here. Okay. As you can see, there's like a sleeve right here. And what's nice about that is that it makes my back bulletproof, at least for pistol rounds. It also protects you from shrapnel and things of that nature. But then you can also flip the backpack around into your front if you need to protect the front area more, or you can just grab this out, and it's a laptop case, but at the same time, you now have a little bit of a bulletproof shield. So I think that's a very cool thing to have. And they have tested it, and they've told me that if there is a laptop in here, it actually might exceed the rating for what it can stop in the sense of bullet penetration, but we can't guarantee that because every laptop is different, of course. But this is still a good option too, in case you don't want to wear armor, but you want to have something with you that can act as a shield, and it's something useful for everyday stuff anyway, because most people that carry around a laptop have it in some sort of a case. So I think that's very cool as well. Now, that is the big part of the bag, except for the water bottles. Now, why do we have the water bottles? Hydration is good, don't get me wrong, but we also want to make sure we have, well, not in that pocket, that's something else. But we want to make sure we have the ability to decontaminate if we get exposed to things that are a little bit harsh. So this is good old Johnson & Johnson baby shampoo. Now this is the no tears formula, right? Because it's not harsh and it can be used on babies without burning their eyes. Why is that reasonable or sensible in this situation? Well, because your eyes might get burnt. So when pepper spray or OC gas is used in excess, of course, even if you're innocent or just somebody who's trying to get through and doesn't necessarily want to be in the area, it can affect you, especially if it gets on you or gets on your face. Things can get very bad very quickly. So one of the better ways to decontaminate yourself regarding that is to use water and baby shampoo. Now, there's other things online about different remedies and stuff that they use. You see people using milk and all kinds of stuff, but at least from my understanding, and I did reach out to a friend in law enforcement to try to get some information about how they treat that type of situation where somebody gets pepper sprayed or exposed to OC gas and starts having a reaction and everything goes south very quickly. They use baby shampoo. So baby shampoo, it's obviously not going to be harsh, but it will wash out those chemicals without adding additional irritants in the process. And so you would use the water, and these water bottles have the more of like a squirt style mouthpiece rather than just like, a standard bottle cap. And that allows you to kind of focus it more if you need to. So you can squeeze it into your eyes and squeeze it into the affected area a little bit more accurately than just trying to pour it on. And then you can rinse it off, use the baby shampoo to kind of lather it up and rub everything down, and then rinse it off again, and then just do that until it doesn't burn anymore, or at least until it gets to a point where you can get back in action and try to get away, right? Because look, this stuff is going to affect protesters, it's going to affect people who are part of the rioting, it's going to affect police, and it can affect you just as easily, and you should know how to remedy it, especially in the sense of being able to carry the stuff with you in a backpack that's very, low key, doesn't take up a whole lot of space, isn't super heavy, but is still very useful if you ever find yourself in that situation. So that's why I wanted to give you that option as something that you could technically use to remedy those effects. Now, obviously, do some research and make sure that the technique you're going to use is going to align with what works for you. But these are things that I've just been trying to figure out and learn about and pass along. And this seems to be the big one that a lot of people agree on. And this is good because it's useful for both pepper spray and OC gas, whereas some of the other remedies you'll find online and the other remedies people are using right now in these protests are usually geared towards one or the other, and this one will pretty much do both to about the same level of effectiveness. So that's why we had the water bottles, and now you also know, and yes, this is baby shampoo, not baby oil. That's for a different type of unrest event. Now, let's talk about other things. So the gas mask had the ballistic shielding, right? But you can't always just put a gas mask on, and I understand that. I'm not trying to say you should definitely do that. I'm saying you might want it as an option in case things get really bad and in case you just have to get through an area that is completely doused with gas, right? Or pepper spray or whatever it might be. But if you don't find yourself in a situation where wearing a gas mask is reasonable, I think having Eye Pro is still a good idea. Now, this is the Ghost Wolf model from Warbird, and Warbird's cool because all of their eyewear is ballistically rated to protect your eyes from things regarding, what is it, Z87.1? Yeah, these are Z87 plus when it comes to their safety rating. So these are great because they'll shield your eyes, they'll protect your eyes better than just like a standard pair of glasses will. And of course, they're not going to look as aggressive or out of place as like a gas mask would. So I definitely have some level of protective lenses with you, just so you can put them on and protect your eyes in case things start flying around that shouldn't be. So that's always a good option, okay? And then let's see, what else do we got here? Gloves, same reason really. Stuff's going on, there's a lot of things happening. Protect your hands, and especially if you're starting to like have to deal with people, or you're having to deal with things that are on the ground, and there's stuff going on that is very hazardous to your hands. Like things are very hot. I've seen videos of people picking up used canisters that are super hot or had just been fired or whatever, and you can find yourself dealing with hazardous materials very quickly. And of course, there's broken glass, or there's all types of hazards whenever these situations occur, depending on where you find yourself in the moment. So having some gloves, these are just mechanics wear, but they're good gloves and they do a decent job of protecting your hands while also allowing you to still be agile. So just have a good pair of gloves with you. I think that's always a good idea, but it's something I would definitely want to have on me if I caught myself out in the middle of a mess like that. And if you're in a situation where you feel like the need to wear a helmet and a gas mask and anything else like that when it comes to personal protective equipment, then gloves should be a no-brainer, right? Like this should almost be like the first thing you think about. So just have some gloves on you. In that same vein, just to kind of touch on that, this is a balaclava. So gas mask out of the question. It's too overt or it's too much, or you just don't have it because it's expensive or whatever it might be, which is understandable, of course, for someone who's hoping to not be involved in this to begin with, right? Like this is a just in case you find yourself in the middle of that and you didn't ever plan on it. Not a, hey, here's what you need to take with you to go wreak havoc. That's not the intention of this video at all. I'm trying to help people that wish they weren't where they were. So a balaclava is good for a couple of reasons. Of course, it can help, protect your face and your eye, or not your eyes, but like your respiratory system and stuff from contaminants and things like that a little bit better than nothing at all. But in reality, like this gives you a little bit of protection while also offering the ability to conceal yourself if needed. Now, I'm not trying to advocate for concealing yourself, especially, like I said, verify if it's even legal or not in your area. But there are situations where you might find yourself in a crowd where you might have to do something or make a decision or whatever it might be that might not be popular with the type of people who are around you in the moment. And it might be okay to not want everyone to know exactly who you are, or be able to track you down later for whatever purposes they might want to track you down for. So having the ability to conceal your identity might be worth having access to, although it's not something I would recommend doing just for the sake of it, unless, circumstance arises. So having access to this is just a good idea for a couple of different reasons, like I just went over. So balaclava is a good idea. And of course, I think this is the last thing we're going to go over. And this is just a can of little pepper spray. Now, here's the thing, right? Because I'm not advocating, the situation involving firearms or anything along those lines in this video, because that's super situational and super individual. And there's a lot of reasons why using weapons in this type of a situation would just most likely make things much worse, right? And of course, I'm not saying you shouldn't be armed. I'm saying that you need to be making very good decisions about the current situation and avoid any type of confrontation if at all possible. And one thing that's great about pepper spray is not only is it less lethal, but it can be used in some ways to hopefully avoid escalating things or avoid even being involved in a situation in the first place. If it acts as like a tool of a quick fix that leads to immediate evasion and escape, right? Like this is so you get away as quickly as possible with as little disruption as possible, not so you can, disable somebody or try to, take the fight to somebody or anything like that. No, this is a last resort. Like, hey, I just need to get away from this aggressive person or this aggressive situation. And my only way out is to, create some sort of distraction or some sort of a situation that involves them no longer paying attention to me, right? Like there's reasons why having something like this on you is a good idea. And this is just something good to have on you. This is just Saber pepper spray. It's very basic stuff, right? Very inexpensive. But this is just good to have on you anyway, even as just a prepared citizen, because not every situation escalates to the level of lethal force, and having an option that doesn't require that is good to have, right? And especially just to kind of touch base on this really quick, in an SHTF type scenario where, things have fallen apart to the point where we're on a local level now of trying to maintain a level of peace and stability, you don't want to overstep your bounds just because it's an emergency. We should still try to operate within constitutional boundaries and take care of each other and have some sort of standards and ethics in order to make things easier to transition to afterward when things start to improve once again, right? So less lethal is just a good option. It's not always the best option. There's situations where it's not going to do the trick, but in this particular context, I think that it's a reasonable thing to have with you and a reasonable thing to have as an option without having to escalate into something much further. Now, everyday carry stuff is still going to apply here. So you should have a flashlight. You should definitely have your phone and communications and all your stuff, right? And obviously, we're coming from the context of somebody who's not trying to be involved with anything nefarious or anything illegal. This is the context of somebody who just wants to be able to get home safely and isn't sure if they're going to get caught up in the middle of something unfortunate. So that's how that would all apply. And if you don't everyday carry a flashlight, then you would add a flashlight to this particular kit. But I carry one every day, so it's something that I think, you should as well, because they're very useful, not even just for preparedness purposes, but basic life stuff, right? Looking into dark places to try to find something or whatever it might be, it becomes very useful. So that's something else I would definitely have access to, because it's usually at night and in the dark when things get really bad regarding this unrest. But hey, we've seen things escalate to the point of violence during the day as well, which means you never really know when it might, pop up. And number one rule here, I'm just going to say this right now, is I would avoid any of these events if at all possible to begin with. So you shouldn't be in the area where this stuff is happening. But I do understand, and I'm not completely, you know, past the point of nuance to realize that there are people who have lives that can't necessarily get away from some of these situations based on, where they work or where they live or how they commute or whatever it might be, and they might find themselves in the middle of something like this, and they might wish they had some way of protecting themselves in the meantime until they can get away. And that was the goal of this video, is to give those options, to give you some ideas about what could possibly help. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Let me know if there's anything else that you would add to this kit or things that you would consider. I'm sure I missed some things because I'm not a professional activist, right? So I don't have like the training to where I know exactly what to bring and exactly what I'm going to need. But at the same time, I try not to be at those events. So you might be more aware or more experienced with some of this stuff, and you might have some good input. And I'd love to see it in the comments, because it might help me learn more, but it might help somebody else actually protect themselves. And who knows, you might save somebody's life. So please do that. And of course, in the description and the pinned comment, there will be those links to a lot of these products: Premier Body Armor, Mira Safety, Refuge Medical. All these companies are companies I've worked with and had a good relationship over the years. So definitely appreciate them helping and supporting me here. And of course, if there's anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. The train is here, so I got to go. And that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.